Hey everybody, Steven here, and today excited to showcase this product. This is the Aorus 43-inch 144Hz 4K monitor. This is a VA panel here. The model number is FV43U. This just launched. And with this video, I'm going to get it unboxed. A little bit different with this because it's so big that I'm not going to showcase much of that. I'm going to get it set out on this and then just talk about everything that you'll actually find in the box right here. I'm a little bit limited to try and get this, and this thing is massive. I've had to back up the camera quite a ways in here just to get this in frame. But excited about this because it's obviously 4K with the 144 Hertz, but for those that have the new Xbox Series X or the PlayStation 5, this can actually do 4K at that 120 Hertz because it has HDMI 2.1. Now I can't showcase that because I still haven't been able to get my hands on one of those. I want to get both consoles, I just literally haven't been able to get one. And so I can't showcase that yet. I'm hopeful that I can get one here soon, and then I do actually want to showcase what this thing can do, but I am going to be showcasing what this can do on PC at that 144 Hertz. This isn't going to be quite the review. This is just going to be me talking about my initial impressions with this and the unboxing portion, but down the road I do want to do an official review on this. But let's get this thing unboxed first, and then I'm going to cover all of the specs with this and what you're actually going to find on the panel. So let's go ahead and cut to that. Alright, all set up here. It was pretty easy for the most part. I mean, hardest part is getting this thing out of the box because it is so big. And then putting the legs on, they have a groove that fits in there. I didn't have them backwards, but it just wasn't fitting properly. I swapped them out and then it would, so the screw wasn't quite lining up like it should. But they're interchangeable, so I don't think that should have been an issue, but it ended up being one. But it's fine now, so maybe something to check. I was fortunate to have this here so I could actually lay underneath it and check those screws and see why aren't they lining up and then get them swapped out. But yeah, this thing's big. I'm going to probably say that a couple more times in this video because it is 43 inches. I usually game on a 32-inch monitor. That's what I'm really comfortable with. So I'm curious to see how this works when swapping it out for the monitor that I have now. But let's talk about what you get in the box here really quick. So with this, you're going to get your warranty card, you're going to get your setup guide, something I haven't gotten with other monitors, a color calibration factory report with this. So it gives you your serial number and all of that. So measurement condition, this is set to 6500K out of the box. Gamma curve is 2.2. Color gamut is sRGB. And then it tells you the device, measurement device, Konica Minolta CA-310. Measurement results, gamma is 2.16. Color space coverage, sRGB, is 99.7%. Average delta E is 1.19. It then gives you the reports on this, so it actually shows what this ended up coming out as with their test here, which is really cool. Like I said, I haven't seen that before on any of the monitors that I've bought with this. So we have that. This does come with a remote here. They do give you batteries. In terms of the cables, we're going to have our USB extension cable here. This has two USB 3.1s on it, so that's a big thing for me. I usually am running peripherals off of my monitor. I generally try to buy monitors that have at least an extra two, so really happy to see that. With this as well, we're going to have HDMI for a cable. I'm pretty sure this is going to be the 2.1 because, like I mentioned, this is a 2.1 port. It would suck if they had that and then didn't give you HDMI 2.1 cable with it. But we have that, and then we have our DP cable. I was curious about that because they have kind of mentioned that this is one of those things that you can use it with the new console. So I didn't know if it was really geared towards that where you wouldn't get the DP cable, but we do have DP right here. It is 1.4. I will confirm that here in a minute. And then for our power cables here, they give you 3 different ones. So I guess it's going to be, depending on where you are, that's going to be the one that you're going to use, obviously. So I'm in the US here, so we have our US one here. And then there are 2 other ones, a 3-prong. They're actually both 3-prong. They just look different. So I'm assuming this is going to be for Europe and probably Asia is my assumption with this. So those do come in the box. On the side here, in terms of ports that you're going to get, I mentioned the 2 extra USB 3.1s. We have a USB Type C with this, and that can actually charge devices. I think it's 10 watt. Once again, I'll confirm that here in a minute. We have 1 DP, 2 HDMI, and then you have your audio in, and there might be an audio out on this as well, but I'll confirm that here in a minute. In terms of specs with this, we'll go over this. I couldn't print this out. Printer wasn't working, so I'm going to go off my phone here. But this is a 43-inch VA QLED panel. So we don't get, obviously, any type of height or tilt or pan or anything like that in terms of the adjustments with this. This is set. The good news, though, is that you can actually VESA mount this. This is 200 by 200 millimeters. So if you do want to VESA mount this, you actually can. Power consumption, 280 watts. That's quite a bit with this. Power saving mode is 0.5 watts. Power off mode is 0.3. Voltage, AC, 100 to 240 volts with 50 to 60 hertz. Obviously, like I mentioned, we don't have any adjustments to the height, tilt, swivel, pan. We get the 2 USB 3.0. Sorry, I thought they were 3.1s. They are 3.0s. USB-C, you have 1. You do have your Kingston lock with this. Net weight, and I'm assuming because it doesn't specify, but I'm assuming this is in pounds. It's 10 pounds. And then it is a built-in, so these obviously, it's not a power brick, so that's actually built in with this. Unique features that it mentions. OSD Sidekick, aim stabilizer sync, black equalizer, dashboard, crosshair, timer, counter, crosshair, auto update, KVM, 6-axis, color control, smart OD, and then space audio. We'll talk about that audio here in a minute. Panel backlight type is direct. Display surface is anti-glare. And then the color saturation. So this covers 97% of the DCI P3 color gamut. This is 150% of the sRGB color scale, and then 99% of the Adobe RGB color scale here. It's 4K. The brightness, typical is 750 candelas per square meter with this, and then if you bump that up to the HDR, and this is 1,000 nits, which was another big draw for me, you're going to get that 1,000 CD/M squared, that candelas per square meter with this. So that's going to be peak brightness, which is why this has the official certification for that 1,000 nits. Contrast ratio is 4,000 to 1. It just says that. So it's not giving me certain specs with this. It's just saying 4,000 here, which that's like typically when you see a monitor, you're going to get like your standard color gamut, and then you're going to get your dynamic, and it's not giving me that info. So it's just 4,000 to 1 for the contrast ratio. Color display colors, we have 10-bit color here, right? You have the 8 bits, and then if you bump it up to the 10-bit, you'll get 8 bits plus FRC. This has 2 12-watt speakers, so this thing should pump out a good amount of sound with this. And I'm assuming they're down here at the bottom. The response time, 1 millisecond MPRT, that motion picture response time. I've talked about this a lot in other videos with this. Now, your typical TV that I've seen a lot of stuff. I mean, you can get QLED panels and stuff like that, but an average one, if I'm remembering correctly, a lot of times they are VA panels. It's just they're a little bit different. The response time is a lot slower with it. And so with this, that's a big draw, in my opinion, is going to be that 1 millisecond MPRT. Now, it's not the fastest. So it's not gray to gray. Gray to gray is typically, G to G is typically faster. So everything that I've seen says 1 millisecond MPRT is 4 milliseconds MPRT. So with this, every panel that I've tested, VA panel, 1 millisecond MPRT has some level of ghosting. I'm expecting there's going to be some level of ghosting with this. Now, if it was gray to gray, that 1 millisecond G to G or 0.5, I'd be like, all right, I'm not really expecting that. Or maybe if it was like an IPS panel this size, which would be pretty crazy, then I would expect a reduction in that. The big test for me, and the thing that I'm going to talk about when I actually start testing this though, is how apparent is that from my eyes, because I don't have the setup to fully test that in the way that it should be tested. Now I have a motorized slider. The problem is I just don't have it so it can keep up with the UFO test where you would actually test this. And I'll look at black light smearing or black smearing or anything like that. We'll look at any type of panel bleed, things like that. I expect there's going to be some level of all of that stuff with this. I'm hoping it's a little bit better than some of the other panels that I've tested, because there is still a range in that I've noticed. But we won't see that until I actually start gaming on this. So refresh rate, the 144 hertz. It's 120 hertz for the consoles if you're going to play on a console here. And then we have the VESA display HDR 1000, like I mentioned, officially certified. Flicker free, it does have that. And then we have our ports, and yes, it's DisplayPort 1.4, the HDMI 2.1s with this. And then earphone jack, yes. And that's really all they give you on the website. So one of the questions was that I actually got when I posted that I was going to be getting this in on Twitter is, hey, does this have G-Sync? Doesn't have G-Sync, I know that. Does it have FreeSync? There is no mention of FreeSync with this, which kind of makes me nervous. So hopefully that's not an issue. I'll see what pops up when I get this set up too. If it does have FreeSync, and I have my RTX 3080 in this PC behind me, I should see that G-Sync compatibility pops up. That's going to be one of my signs that, okay, it does have that. If not, we'll see how this performs, because I would hate to get this and now everything's choppy and I'm getting screen tearing, and layer that on top of the potential for ghosting and things like that. That makes me a little weary. Not a huge issue, I don't think, with the newer consoles. It's nice to have the FreeSync. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you have G-Sync, awesome with that. But we'll see. I don't have those consoles yet, so I can't quite test that. I do have an Xbox One X that I may try on this thing for the review, but right now that's really all of the specs with this. I need to get this thing set up. I'm going to come back over with voiceover work and really just showcase a bunch of different angles on this, showcase me playing games, kind of give you guys an idea of what this may look like. Keep in mind also, and I haven't mentioned it with other videos, I just think it's something that people would kind of think that's going to be the case. I'm recording this on a camera, and you're already secondary because you're getting this through a camera, and then I'm gonna upload it through Premiere Pro, export it, then it's going to go to YouTube. It's transferred a bunch, and I think the quality is still there, but it's also not like you're actually there in person viewing this thing. So do keep that in mind. But I'm going to talk about my experience with this and kind of give my initial impression overall. Do I think this is worth, and I don't think I've mentioned the price point yet, this is typically $1,100. Right now there's a discount for it, it's $1,000. That's still a lot of money for a monitor. What's crazy though is looking at some of the, if you want to call them budget 4K monitors that can reach 120, maybe 144 hertz, you're paying like $700 to $800, maybe even $900 for those. They're still VA panels. They're still flat, but it's 27 inches. So this may be something with, hey, I want to play on the consoles. I got the new ones. I want to hit that 120 hertz. It's a good screen size, and I want to be able to game on my PC with this. And now I can just essentially run everything off of this because it has the 2 HDMI ports. I can go one to the Xbox Series X, one to the PlayStation 5, and then my DP port can go to my PC. So there is a lot of upside with that with this. But let's get this thing set up. So let's cut ahead to me talking about my first initial impressions with this. So after using the Aorus FV43U for roughly a week, my initial impression is that this is an incredible monitor. It checks a lot of the boxes I've been looking for in a 4K monitor, but I know this is going to get a lot of comments of it just being a glorified TV, but for time's sake, I'm going to commit to this just being a PC monitor for this video.
So let me cover some of the things I think people should know about the monitor first before I get into the things I like and don't like. Setup is quick and easy, and the color presets aren't half bad. I'll make sure those pop up right now so you can see what they look like. I'm currently using Verse mode with some minor adjustments to it in the Aorus panel menu and the NVIDIA control panel. There are 3 user profiles you can adjust. Just make sure you save them in the menu settings when you're done, as you can adjust other things like adaptive sync, black levels, blue light filter, etc. for your specific user mode. Next, a question I had on one of my posts about this monitor was whether it had FreeSync or not, which is AMD's version of VESA Adaptive Sync. So it doesn't have FreeSync or true G-Sync, but it does have Adaptive Sync. If you have an NVIDIA GPU, you can enable G-Sync compatibility in the NVIDIA control panel, although this isn't officially certified. I've tried it with it turned on and off, and it's been a smooth gaming experience regardless of it being on or off, but it does seem slightly better at most with it on, but I doubt most people will even notice a difference. For those who use a controller with their PC for certain games like I do, it will seem like there's input lag if you don't adjust your controller sensitivity before playing. I'm assuming this has to do with how big the screen is, but I've noticed it in all 4 games I've tested using a controller. It did happen once with my mouse, so I don't know if that was a fluke or not, but that is something that may happen for people also. Once this was adjusted in the game's menu though, the gaming experience was seamless. Viewing content on YouTube, Netflix, or any other streaming service looks good, but I would recommend running an app through your console or device versus online or an app on your PC. I've never had a great experience with streaming apps on my PC personally, and although it does look decent, it definitely doesn't look as good as it can. But that seems to have more to do with how you are streaming that to the monitor than the monitor itself. I've had that same issue with all of the monitors I've owned, and even some TV apps on my 4K TVs look worse than if I'm streaming through a device. Blacklight bleed is barely present from what I've seen so far, and is the best out of any monitors I've tested. The menu has a good amount going on with it, so I'll have that pop up right now so you can see it. I'll cover this in more depth for my final review, but it's a solid menu, and my only complaint so far is it's extremely grainy and pixelated looking, as if the sharpness on it is turned all the way up, or they just took a small scale version of it and then tried blowing it up big. You'll want to spend some more time in the menu initially to sort through which settings you want on and off, and of course to tweak your color profile to your liking. Navigating this with the remote makes this the easiest menu I've navigated to date also, since I don't need to push a small button on the panel itself. Next, I want to showcase the 2 12-watt speakers. I'm going to do a volume test on this, and then we're going to showcase the different sound spaces that it has for this as well. All of the information is going to pop up on screen so you know what you're looking at, more specifically what you're listening to. So now that I've covered all of that, let's talk about the things that I like about the monitor. The big one first, of course, is going to be the 4K 144Hz, which is what people are buying this monitor for on PC. And although I can't test out any of the new consoles at the 120Hz, I have no doubt they will look amazing on this. I've had a pretty seamless experience so far with the refresh rate, but keep in mind this is a VA panel, so there is some level of black smearing and ghosting. I do want to mention these videos don't do it justice, and in fact make it seem like there is more ghosting and black smearing than in person. Part of that issue is because I'm recording this in 4K at 30 FPS, which makes these things seem more pronounced. Compared to the other monitors I've used, I can say this is top of the list for how minimal the ghosting is, especially when compared to a bad one like the Monoprice Dark Matter. But for those gamers who play more competitive FPS style games, this is going to most likely disappoint you. The 1 millisecond MPRT paired with a VA panel will feel slower and have more ghosting than an IPS panel with a 1 millisecond G to G response time. For everyone else who is a casual gamer or console gamer, this is going to blow you away. I think the menu is solid and easy to navigate, especially when using the remote, which is another great upside to this. The USB Type-C is nice and charges my phone fast with the 10 watts, but it doesn't allow my phone to use a monitor as an extended screen, at least through my testing right now. I have more testing to do for the review, and I also want to see if this works with a tablet or a laptop. The two 12-watt speakers are really good, both in terms of how loud they can get and the sound profiles you can set them to. And although I figured they would be good, they surpassed my expectations for sure. Last, the HDR looks incredible as this has true 1000 nits of brightness and local dimming. It's not going to look as good as monitors with tons of local dimming zones like the Acer Predator X35, which has 512 local dimming zones, but it still looks really good, plus the Acer costs $2,500. I haven't been able to find any information on how many local dimming zones this has, but I doubt it has full array local dimming, which is crazy expensive. With all that said though, this still looks really good in the 1000 nit brightness compared to the monitors that I've used in the past. With 400 or 500 or 600, this blows that away. This still looks really, really good. The easiest HDR experience I've had in Doom Eternal also, by the way, which I think is a huge upside and really speaks to the true 1000 nits here. So now that I've covered what I like about this monitor, let's talk about what I don't like so far. I think if you're going to get this monitor, you need to know exactly what type of viewing distance you'll be at because my desk isn't very wide, so I'm extremely close to this thing. Which maybe for some people that might not be an issue if you don't care about your eyes, but the other downside here is the closer you get, the more the corners of the screen will look dim. I'm hoping to get this VESA mounted at my new house and have this back a little bit further to fully take advantage of the size. Also, if you're coming from a curved screen, this will take some getting used to. The screen actually looks like it's bending away from me, although I think a large part of that has to do more with my current viewing distance, but it's still taking me a little bit to adjust to this, even when sitting back with the controller. This monitor is basically a TV, and I know it's going to get that comparison, and I'm going to get plenty of comments on it, so I think having FreeSync Premium or True G-Sync would have been nice here, although for G-Sync that would mean a much higher price point. For FreeSync Premium or Premium Pro, it would have covered the high refresh rate and HDR, although the monitor has been smooth for me, so it would have just been nice to have here at this price point. I don't think it's 100% necessary, but paying that $1,000, that $1,100, it would have been a nice touch. And I think that would have differentiated this from a TV also with having True G-Sync or FreeSync Premium / Premium Pro. The HDR is one of the best I've used since it has the 1000 nits like I mentioned, but it did come with a performance hit as this is 4K HDR. So although Doom Eternal still played smooth, it did hover in the 80 to 90 FPS versus the normal 144 that I can hit. I was noticing more ghosting also, so I turned the graphics settings down from Ultra Nightmare to Nightmare, which actually smoothed it out more. So that last one with the HDR, to me it's more of a gray area, but it's actually something that I've mentioned in previous videos, and it's the same thing. I don't think it's 100% a negative. It's just something I think is in the gray area, but maybe some people think of it as a negative, which is that you're gonna need to expect that you're gonna tweak a lot of these settings for the monitor and games potentially. It's something that I've noticed with all of the monitors that I've used, and it's really a case-by-case basis with how they perform with your general settings. You're gonna tweak these things because certain games may seem to have horrible ghosting or input lag or screen tearing, maybe just overall bad performance, but after tweaking settings, you can usually smooth all of this out. It just takes time and patience, and that is the same with this monitor. So that's going to round it out for the negatives here. And as I mentioned, I mean, probably all of those are really just kind of a gray area versus straight up negatives. So overall, this monitor is a win for me so far. Of course, I need to spend more time with this before my final review, but it's made a great first impression to say the least. I do want to mention another monitor if you need to save a little bit of money, and this is at its normal $1,100 mark. That's the Philips Momentum. I'll make sure that the full name pops up on the screen because it's a long one here, but it might be a solid option for you as it's cheaper at $850, but it's only 75 Hertz overclocked, with the other specs being very close to the Aorus. I haven't personally tested this out, but I thought it was worth mentioning. I'll have a link for the Aorus FV43U in the description, as well as the other monitors mentioned in this video. If you have any questions for me about this monitor, let me know in the comment section, and I'll try my best to answer it and potentially cover that in the review if it's something I missed here also. As always, I want to thank you so much for watching my videos. If you like the video, hit the like button for me. If you want to continue to follow along with all my content, hit the subscribe button for me, and I'll see you in the next video.